So Manny Pacquiao retires from boxing. It's sad, but at the same time happy. Sad because sad because of the simple fact that it's trying to understand that you're not going to see him fight again. So that's disappointing because, in all honesty, and I know a lot of people probably feel the same way. If it wasn't for Pacquiao, I wouldn't have been, I wouldn't have watched boxing as much. Up until the kind of time, the long reign that he had. If you've been watching Pacquiao like I have, probably everybody has since the start. My first fight of Pacquiao was when he fought in the States, when he fought Barrera #1. Then probably kind of backwards, I didn't see it in the right order. I saw when he beat the South African Labada. And then from that fight, I saw all of his fights, all the way up until Ugas. So when you've been following someone for so long, and you've been watching them, kind of like half of your life is connected to that person because you've got all your good memories. That's the good thing about Pacquiao for me personally. I've got so many good memories with going out and watching the big fights with friends, watching them on my own, watching it with my brother. So that's sad, that nostalgia. It's kind of, it's a bit heartbreaking. But at the same time, you're kind of excited to see Pacquiao, retire. Now he's cemented himself in history as one of the greatest of all time. In my opinion, I think he's the greatest of all time. Obviously, not everyone's going to agree with that, and I understand that, but he's definitely, it's a fact. He's one of the greatest boxers that's ever lived in any era. What he's achieved, and an 8-weight world champion, and as a lot of people have said already, it's not just what he achieved, it's how he achieved it, it's the style. And for me, the first time I ever saw Pacquiao, you could say I wasn't biased because I was a big fan of Marco Antonio Barrera. So I didn't know who Pacquiao was, and I remember when I used to work as a postman, a mailman, a guy at work, a friend, used to give me these tapes, and they had all, where you would take boxing, because back then YouTube wasn't even around. You couldn't go on YouTube and watch free fights. So if you didn't have Sky, which I didn't, then there was really no other option to watch the big fights. So he gave me a tape, which he taped the whole night on his cassette, and had all the British boxing fights in it, which I loved. But Sky used to show the British fights and then say, right, we're going over to Las Vegas now, we're going over to America. And it's all, and Marco Antonio Barrera is fighting Manny Pacquiao from the Philippines. I remember thinking, I'd never heard of this guy before. It's a different name. I remember the commentator couldn't even pronounce his name. And because I was a Barrera fan, obviously I wanted Barrera to win at that point. But when I saw how Pacquiao could fight, I couldn't believe it. I was mesmerised. Not just the way he was fighting, but that was the first time I saw Barrera get beaten up. Because I'd watched most of Barrera's career, of him winning his fights and the epic fights of Eric Morales, and Pacquiao just battered him. And Barrera's like one of the greats as well. Hall of Famer, legend, Mexican legend. And to see Pacquiao, it's quite refreshing and different to see a fighter coming from the Philippines. I'm sure there's been some good fighters, but to my knowledge at that point, I didn't know any fighters from the Philippines that were champion boxers. And seeing someone coming out of the Philippines with the style that he brought, which was like a Mexican fighter, but with his own different, unique style. It almost fought like a Mexican, a little bit of touch of Bruce Lee, a bit of martial arts, and crazy footwork and mental hand speed, crazy combination punches, and I just loved it straight away. I became a fan straight away after that Barrera fight, and like I said, I followed all Pacquiao's careers. So, I've literally gone from, being a kid to being a man. When I was first watching Pacquiao, I was in my early 20s. I was 20, 21, 22. And now I'm 38, I'm not far off 40. So, I've been watching Pacquiao for donkey's years. You kind of, like I said, it's a quarter of your life or half of your life. So, in terms of my favourite Pacquiao fight, I like pretty much all of his fights, but I'd have to say, for some reason, my memory always goes to Miguel Cotto. I think that was my best Pacquiao fight, and there's two reasons why. Now, I had two friends at the time. One friend was a huge fan of Pacquiao. We loved Pacquiao. We would always go out to sports bar. I know some of you might not know where that is if you're in United States or Philippines, but for those of you in England, you probably know it's in central London. We'd go sports bar, we would stay up like all night. We'd pay the entry fee, which was like £10, £15, $20 in US money. And we would watch the whole undercard and obviously wait for the Pacquiao fight. And on this particular night, I had two friends with me. One was a Pacquiao fan, the other one was a Miguel Cotto fan. He loved Cotto, right? Followed all of Cotto's career and was completely disagreeing with me, right? We were good friends, but we were arguing it. I was saying, listen, man, Pacquiao's going to destroy him. And he was saying, no way, Pacquiao's too small, he's too skinny. Miguel Cotto is so strong, he's a good boxer. He's gonna destroy him. And I was saying, no, you don't understand. I said, it's just because you don't like Pacquiao and you like Cotto's style, you're being biased. He's like, no. I said, all right, we're gonna see. So the three of us, we went out to Sports Bar that night of the Pacquiao Cotto. I still remember it, great memories. And I just remember the electricity when it started. Obviously, I wasn't 100% Pacquiao was going to win, but I was certain that he was going to win. I could feel it in my gut. So I think round one went, and I think Miguel Cotto kind of nicked round one, if I remember, in that fight. Or he boxed quite well. He was kind of catching Pacquiao with a jab, but Pacquiao was just getting his rhythm. But then when the second round came and the third and so on, when Pacquiao started hitting him with combinations, and then when he dropped him, it just went crazy in the bar. I remember my friend, he was just in shock. He couldn't believe it. And obviously, when the fight ended, Pacquiao destroyed him. I remember saying to my friend, what happened? I thought you said your boy was going to win. I thought you said Cotto was going to win. What happened? He's like, oh man. He just couldn't say anything. He just like, yeah. And so, great memories. That's probably... Now, I think for me, again, you could make an argument, so many good Pacquiao fights, but I like that fight because Pacquiao would come up from the smaller weights, and that was, I think that was his first fight, or one of his first fights. Was it welterweight or light welterweight? I think it was at 147. I can't remember now. I think 147, 140. So Pacquiao was kind of going up against the big guys. Miguel Cotto was a big welterweight. He was always, you could tell he was boiling down. And that night, Pacquiao, to me, just looked unbeatable. The speed, the angles, and even the point where Pacquiao was putting his gloves up like that and just standing there and saying to Cotto, come on, and just taking his hardest shots. And I just thought, it was just phenomenal. And at that point, I liked Pacquiao because I felt like he reinvented himself. If you go back to the days where Pacquiao, when he had those epic fights with Morales, Barrera, Marquez, although I loved his style, he didn't really have much of a defense. It was just like a come forward. Obviously, it was amazing, but over time, Freddie Roach kind of like added to his game. He still had that Mexican fast hands fighter all out, but now by the time he'd got to Cotto, he was clever. His hands were up, he was moving his head, he was using his jab. He'd become like a boxer fighter, become a complete fighter. And I love seeing that evolution, and I noticed that in the Cotto fight, and he just took over boxing. I remember thinking, Mayweather's not going to fight him. At the time, everybody wanted to see that fight, and I just remember, thinking Mayweather's going to be scared to his boots at that time. After that performance, Pacquiao kind of like, he really announced his way. He took over boxing. Obviously before that, but that win was really like, that took him to another level. So that is my favourite fight, but I love so many other fights. I love the Margarito fight. That was just unbelievable performance. The Hatton fight was a bit heartbreaking for me because obviously I was a big fan of Hatton, so I was kind of like conflicted with, probably did want Ricky Hatton to win, to be honest, but it was a brilliant performance. Pacquiao just destroyed him. And so many other fights. I mean, if I had to say my second best fight, I'm going to have to say the Keith Thurman performance. I just loved it because for me, that was like Pacquiao rolling back the years, especially with us being in a lockdown. Well, no, sorry, that was before lockdown, right? I just loved it because Pacquiao was 40. Everybody thought he was over the hill, he's past it. Thurman's a great fighter, undefeated, and the way he put him down, and it was that nostalgia again. So Pacquiao, again, for me, kind of tapped into the old man, he brought him back. And so they're my two favourite fights, the Cotto win and the Furman fight. And of course, I love his fights with. I love all of his fights. You know, I love his fights with Bradley, the Marquez, the Barrera, the Eric Morales. And, you know, this is the thing about Pacquiao for me that separates him from every other boxer that I've ever watched. And there's a lot of boxers I love. For me personally, no one gave me the excitement and the butterflies and the nerves and the entertainment and the joy. No other fighter ever in history. There's fighters that I absolutely love. I love Calzaghe. Calzaghe's probably like one of my favourites of all time, and he was amazing. But it's hard for me to say this, but I have to be honest. No one compares to Pacquiao. Just it's hard to explain, but the electricity, the excitement, you know, before his fights, the energy. I think a lot of it had to do as well because he wasn't arrogant. He didn't trash talk. He just came in smiling. And he's like another babyface assassin like Barrera. With Pacquiao, you're never going to get a boring fight. You're never going to spend your money and say, oh, I wasted my money, what a stinker. Why didn't he throw punches? You never get that with Pacquiao. You never got that. Every fight he gave everything, win, lose or draw. And for me, that just epitomizes greatness, a great fighter. And for me, you know, when he did lose, he came back better, stronger, better, and he didn't make any excuses. And he's been robbed several times, which is disgusting, really, the corruption in boxing. But anyway, he kind of it's just unbelievable. Just the style. It's just I'd never seen a boxer that could do the things that he did. The athletic ability, the combinations, the 10-point. It's just there's no one you could say, oh, he fights like Pacquiao. Oh, you can't say that. There's only one Pacquiao, and there will never be anyone like that in the way that he did it. Of course, there's going to be greats to come, but he's just the electricity, the heart, and just the toughness, and he's just a warrior. He's unbelievable. I can't really fault him. The only regret I've got is that I just wish that he had. For me personally, you wouldn't change anything, but I just wish that him and Mayweather would have fought 3 times. For me, one didn't cut it. It's still a bit. I know Floyd got the decision, but you know, I thought Manny won the fight, but he lost the boxing match. You know, Floyd outboxed him in phases. He got the decision, but it didn't happen when we won it. It was 5 years too late, and I would have loved to have seen Floyd take Manny on when he just beat Cotto, but what can you do? We can't change that. So I would have liked to see them do 3 matches like Barrera and Morales done, like Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. And when you have 3 fights, you can really figure out who is the better fighter. But yeah, you know, Floyd's style was always going to be difficult for Manny, being that Floyd's a very cagey, slick, you know, he's the best defensive fighter of all time. And for me, Manny Pacquiao is the best, you know, aggressive fighter of all time with that style. So they're completely different styles, but I suppose at least they fought. But yeah, all of his fights. I mean, even the Bradley fights are brilliant. I'm sorry, I like Bradley a lot, but the first fight, that was a robbery. Pacquiao won all of them. They went on to win the next 2. So all of his fights, Marquez, those fights were brilliant. Just all of them. Hatton. De La Hoya, that was shocking, absolutely shocking what he did to Oscar De La Hoya. I remember at the time, I lived in a different place and I used to buy boxing news. I used to buy the magazines because, like I said, those are the days where I didn't have internet access, I didn't have Sky. So I had to buy boxing news to find out, you know, who the champions were, the upcoming fights. And I remember reading boxing news saying it was suicide, you know, that Manny they were saying he could get killed because he was too small. You know, De La Hoya was too big. De La Hoya was going to destroy him, put him in hospital, and he destroyed De La Hoya. He retired him. He absolutely embarrassed him. Look, I know as well. I was a huge De La Hoya fan. Still think he's one of the greatest of all time as well, De La Hoya. I don't think De La Hoya was in his prime, but still, you know, you can only beat what's in front of you, and he was still De La Hoya. He still had a lot to give. And he decided to, you know, to make himself, he says he was weight drained, but there's always excuses. At the end of the day, Manny destroyed him. And the performance was he just was unbelievable. He was just on point. So he fought everyone. He beat almost everyone. He lost to the best. He drew, he came back. He's had it's an amazing career. It's probably the best resume in boxing history. It's always going to be a matter of opinion, but yeah, I think Manny's got out at the right time now, because I'm not going to dwell on it too much. Even though looking back, it was still a pretty decent performance against Ugas, but he just didn't quite have it like he did in the Furman fight and the fights before. But you know, he could still go on and fight more. But yeah, I think he got out at the right time. There's no point going on now. He proved everything. He fought everyone. He's won at the highest level. He's pretty much beat the best. Unified divisions, gone up different weight divisions. He's larger than life. He really is. He really has achieved success also outside the ring on the level of Muhammad Ali. Now he's a humanitarian. He's going into politics. Wish him all the best with becoming president, and just the message that he has and where he's come from. So it's such an inspiring story, and I've shown people Pacquiao who don't even like boxing, and they're drawn to him. They're just there's just something about him, and I also think, I honestly think a lot of people like him as well, because he's not tall. He's short. He's a short guy. He's not massively built, but when you see him fight, that all goes out the window. Your whole impression. So I think he inspires a lot of people as well. Kind of proves that size don't matter. He's just a warrior. So yeah, and the training, all of it. It's been an unbelievable journey. It really has, and it's hard to process it all on a YouTube video. I don't think I can process everything. It's going to take time. But yeah, it's nice that now he's recognised worldwide as one of the greatest of all time, and in some people's opinions, mine also, the greatest fighter to ever live. So wish him the best, and I hope he still, does bits in boxing. Like, I hope he still does interviews. I'm sure he will, because it'll just be nice to see him. But yeah, I'm gonna miss him, because there's no one, the training, the signature shadow boxing, the fighting, the style, the excitement. I just loved it. I loved the build-ups, and it's really, really hard to find someone who can replace that, and I don't think we can. You just gotta hope that there'll be other fighters that will be great in their way. But yeah, I'm a bit lost for words. I don't really know what to say anymore. So I'm just grateful, man. Well, thanks to Manny, because honestly, and it's true, he inspired me in my life. I think if I didn't watch people like Pacquiao and other people that inspire me, I wouldn't probably have had the growth and the success that I've had in my personal life, and just the way I push myself in the gym. And I think even if we're not consciously aware of it, when you watch people that are good role models and they come from nothing and they achieve success, you get some of that, and that's why it's great that people can inspire people, that motivation. So he pushed me to train hard. I still get motivated now. I still watch his fights, and I am going to do more videos. It ain't going to be the last video that I ever do on Pacquiao, but yeah, it's what an amazing career. So that's what I've got to say. Let me know your feelings and thoughts in the box below, guys, and I'd love to know. I think I've asked this before, what's your favourite Pacquiao fight? There's loads that I like, but if I had to, like I said, my favourite one is the Cotto fight. So I'll speak to you soon. Become fearless.